Hi everyone, my name is John. Welcome back to my channel. I wanted to bring another review to you of a book that I read. Did I read this? I think we started it, sometime in August or so, maybe September. And we read this in the Historathon Discord. That's where we talked about it with a few other people that I talked to over there. Justin from Triumphal Reads, who has his own channel that I'll link down below. He's another co-host of Historathon. And Angie and Brendan, and I think Brian read it too, and maybe one or two other people. And we had a little sort of private discussion in the Discord going on. And the book is this, Revolutionary Spring, by Christopher Clark. Europe Aflame and the Fight for a New World, 1848 to 1849. And did someone else float this, or did I? I forgot. I think I recommended the Enlightenment book, and then someone else may have recommended this. Anyway, I wrote an email to Crown, who published this, and asking if they would be so kind as to send me a copy. And when I got around to reading it, that I would post a review on Goodreads and also talk about it here. So, I want to talk about it. Christopher Clark is probably best known for writing a book about the entry into World War I called The Sleepwalkers, how Europe went to war in 1914. But in this book, he shifts his attention to the political upheaval that tore through Europe, starting in 1848 and going through the summer of the following year in 1849. In this book, Revolutionary Spring, which came out, like I said, from Crown in 2023. Just a matter of months after the publication of the Communist Manifesto, King Louis-Philippe of France and Emperor Ferdinand I of Austria were forced to abdicate their thrones, and at least for a while, another world of political possibility, free of church potentates and all-powerful monarchs, seemed within reach. Oh, but for a brief time. So the book is broken up into 10 chapters that follow thematic trends and through lines. And Clark charts the events as they happen, mostly chronologically, being careful to make this book a pretty pan-European history. After all, the revolutions, if you don't know much about them, were not just isolated to Western Europe. They happened all over the place. So he takes a look at Italy before the Risorgimento and pre-unification Germany, to Habsburg-controlled Austria, to Romania. So he spans the continent. But before he does all of this, or any of it, he sets the ground by exploring the looming social question in Europe. The lack of public health services, workplace exploitation, inequality, gaping disparities that displayed an important triggering role in the revolutions. And from there, he looks at each revolution as in a kind of non-linear way according to its ideology and the important personalities that help drive them forward. This isn't likely an introduction to the revolutions of 1848 that will suit everyone. And I think the reading group that we had in the Discord will probably tell you that. The focus here is on social, political, and even cultural and literary history, which keeps someone like me interested. The revolutions weren't conventionally fought on a battlefield, so there's thankfully not a lot of military history to contend with, at least not in this version of the retelling. But the length of 750 pages, a third of which the author takes to sort of set the scene before the February 1848 revolutions even come to a head. That's when they start, in February of that year. And its cast of hundreds of characters may make this book a little more daunting for someone who's just sort of getting their bearings in the subject. But the way Clarke tells the story, through personal portraits and vignettes, never fails to engage. Marx and Engels being mentioned are sort of de rigueur, I guess, but he also includes people like Lajos Kossuth, the Hungarian revolutionary who fought for independence against the Austrian Empire, Giuseppe Mazzini, the Italian nationalist and Republican and supporter of the Risorgimento in Italy, Louis Blanc, the French socialist and tireless advocate for national workshops for the French unemployed, Mikhail Bakunin, the Russian radical who fought to overthrow not just monarchy but the state itself. He was a famous 19th century Russian anarchist. And people like Cristina di Belgioioso, the Italian aristocrat who supported Italian unification against the Austrians and later helped organize military hospitals in Rome. So these are just 4 or 5 people's names that sprinkle the text and whose information, biographical backgrounds, participation in the revolution he gives to help sort of flesh out what the revolutions are all about. Clarke is a Regius Professor of History at Cambridge University, and he thankfully avoids the pitfalls of easy explanations and black and white causal links between events. He's very careful to draw connections between large trends, but also admits that the events of 1848 and 1849 admitted of, and I'll quote him, polyvocality, lack of coordination, and the layering of many cross-cutting vectors of intention and conflict, end quote. Radicals on the far left and moderates who supported constitutional monarchies both fought against the absolutism of monarchs and clericalism. But radicals wanted to go even further by establishing republicanism, whereas moderates simply wanted less press censorship, more voter enfranchisement, and guardrails against monarchical abuse in the form of constitutional protections. Because many of the revolutions that broke out eventually were subject to successful counter-revolutions at the hands of people like Metternich, they have been sometimes considered failures. But Clarke makes a really convincing case, I think, that the reality is more complex than that. Many of the political ideologies as we recognize them today took their lasting shape, whether it be socialism or conservatism, to different kinds of radicalism. They were tested and took shape during the conflicts of 1848 and 9. And because of that, I mean, if you have the interest level to sustain a 750-page book, about a year and a half of really fascinating European history, this is going to be a place to start. Glad there was no more military history. It is personality-driven and idea-driven, and that's what I like about it. Makes me want to go back and read Sleepwalkers, which may or may not be the same way, but we'll have to see when I get there. Revolutionary Spring, Europe Aflame and the Fight for a New World, 1848 to 1849 by Christopher Clarke. I will be back soon with another review.